Welcome to Atlas Leadership Academy, where our goal is to offer world-class leadership to influence worldwide change. My name is Marianne Owen. I am the Executive Vice President of Atlas Leadership Academy and the Director of Marketing and Branding for Atlas Realty Group.
My name is William King. I am a PhD candidate in business leadership and the CEO of Atlas Realty Group. Additionally, I'm a Maxwell Leadership Facilitator, coach, and speaker. We're excited about today. Today, we will be discussing how to become more influential. More influential. That's what a lot of people want to know as it pertains to being a leader and as it pertains to understanding leadership.
Yes.
Now, as we went through the book, Becoming a Person of Influence by John Maxwell, one thing that stood out to me that he said is that leadership is influence and influence is leadership. And the two kind of go hand in hand.
They do, absolutely.
Have you ever heard of a time where someone absolutely tried to separate the two?
Probably, yes.
And what do you think will be the outcome of that when it happens?
Well, whenever you try to separate the two, like you'd either be leading yourself or you'd have a bunch of people that are following, but you don't know how to lead them. So you've got to have a meeting in the middle somewhere. It's got to be balanced with that.
And so it's probably important to keep them together because we know that leadership is not selfish, number one.
Correct?
Now, the best way to increase your influence, number one, that according to John Maxwell, is to study yourself.
Yes.
What's your take on that?
So when you study yourself, that means to know yourself, know who you are, know what your strengths are, as well as your weaknesses, right? And then when you're talking about studying yourself, you got to know going back to what your strengths are, and then when you focus on your strengths, then you're able to lead people based on those strengths.
Right. I understand. Now, Jack Welch said, before you are a leader, success is about growing yourself. When you become a leader, success is about growing others.
Growing others, yeah.
So that's right along the lines about what we were saying about growing others. The most important aspect of leadership is to help others improve. Now, for me as a leader, one thing I know that have made me successful as a leader is by first looking at myself. To properly influence others, you must look in the mirror. If you don't like what you see, start there.
You should, absolutely.
I said that, by the way.
Oh, you did? It wasn't Michael Jackson?
No,
looking at the man in the mirror? Okay.
Looking at me.
I'm mistaken. So, I have a question. So, when you took a hard look at yourself in the mirror in order to become a more effective leader, what were some things that you saw that maybe you didn't like?
Oh, you put me on blast.
I'm not trying to.
There was a lot. Number one, I noticed that I had a big problem being on time. Also, I was a serial procrastinator. When I mean serial procrastinator, when I was in grad school as well as when I was in school for my PhD, I would have these huge assignments. I'm talking 5, 10, 15, 20 page papers due. And trust me, you're probably guilty of it too, along with a lot of the audience. I'll have these huge assignments due, and I would wait to the last minute.
Last seconds.
And not only was I a procrastinator, I also turned the paper in late and then called the professor and then asked him for an extension. So I was a procrastinator. I was always late. And I mean, that made me a liar because I didn't need an extension. I just did it late. So those three qualities did not make me a good person of influence. So when I decided to be a leader and decided to open an organization, I had to really look at myself and look at the type of person that I wanted to attract first and foremost.
That's correct.
Number one, I did not want to attract a procrastinator. So ultimately, I had to stop procrastinating, right?
That's right.
I did not want to attract someone that's going to give me assignments late. So I had to start being on time. And those things started from when I was in school. I didn't wait until I got on the job force. I didn't wait until I became a business owner to start those things. I had to start from that day because the first thing I had to ask myself was, why do I want to lead in the first place?
That's right.
And I think as it pertains to being a leader, that's one thing we all have to ask ourselves, as well as look in the mirror and say, why do you want to lead? Leadership is not easy, I will say.
It's not, and it is definitely not self-serving.
Right.
If you are trying to serve yourself, then you probably should go to the buffet because that's the only place it is acceptable. Leadership is about serving others. They throw around this servant leader. It's very true.
Right.
It's about people. It's about everybody else. It's about building somebody else up. Even if you don't get recognition or accolades, can your ego handle that?
Right.
But that's what it's about. It's about everyone else. It's not about you.
Correct. And John Wooden said, the most powerful leadership tool you have is your own experience.
Mm-hmm.
And I
Yes.
love that quote, because as we look at our own experience, we can definitely tell what type of leader that we're going to be, whether it's going to be a servant leader,
Mm-hmm.
or whether it's going to be a transformational leader,
Right.
or whether it's going to be someone that leads by example,
Correct.
you know. And as we all know, there's many different types of ways to lead someone. There's hundreds of leadership theories
Mm-hmm.
that was coined in the last hundreds of years, how long leadership has been around.
That's correct.
But-
You have to be very, very flexible because everyone is different.
Right.
And then everybody receives information and receives being led, differently according to, I guess, their personality type and how they are, the things that they've experienced, themselves. So it takes a very smart leader and a very in tune leader to be able to know how to influence one person different from the other, but still be able to get results.
Right. I totally agree with that. Now, one thing that John Maxwell said in his book, How to Become Influential, he took the word influence, and I want you guys to look at the screen. I think it's like right here on the bottom or on the side, wherever it's at. The word influence, he actually broke it down, and it means the following. And we're going to talk
That's
about
cool.
what it means. The I is integrity, N is nurture, F is you got to have faith in people, I is listen,
L is
and
listens.
L is listens.
Yes.
U is understand, E is enlarge, N for navigate, C for connect, M for empower, and R for reproduce.
It's a great acronym.
Let's talk about that acronym for a second. First of all, let's just talk about integrity.
Yes.
What does it mean to have integrity?
It is no question as to why integrity is first, because first and foremost, you must have I feel like the utmost of integrity about yourself, about your business, and about people. And for me, integrity is, of course, just doing the right thing, even when no one is looking.
Right. That was one of the leadership traits that was in the Marine Corps. I also served the Marines. And one of the biggest things that a lot of leaders talked to us was about is having integrity, which meant doing the right thing when no one's looking.
Correct.
Right. And so as it relates to being a leader and having integrity, if no one can trust you, nobody's going to follow you, number one.
That's right.
Because it doesn't matter what you say, what you do. If I can't trust you, there's no way I'm following you.
That's right.
Because a lot of people make major life decisions based on the advice they get from an actual mentor or a leader.
Mm-hmm.
And if I can't trust you as a leader,
There is nothing you can tell me
that's going to make sense and make me move.
or where I'm going to listen, even if it's good advice. It's like,
Correct.
I'm not listening to this person.
We'll never know because you're a liar
That's right.
and I can't trust you.
That's right.
So if you want to be a good leader, the first thing you need to do is look at yourself and ask yourself, am I a man of integrity? Am I a woman of integrity? Do I have integrity?
Mm-hmm.
Only you can answer that question. And once you decide what that answer is, then you can make the appropriate changes to become a better leader.
Correct.
And become more influential. Now, the N is talking about nurturing.
Yes.
Marianne, you know a lot about that. Let's talk about
Yes,
nurturing.
so-
What's that about?
I mean, notoriously, I can't say, well, not negatively, but, women are known to be more nurturing by nature, correct? So nurturers cultivate, nurturers take care of, and, give all the good feel goods and whatnot. Now, that is not coddling. Don't be confused with that. Nurturing gives you the right amount of information in the way that you can receive it in order to be able to grow properly. It's just like when you have a plant and you can't overwater the plant, you can't underwater the plant. You have to give it just enough so that plant can grow. Put it in the right environment, give it the right nutrients it needs in order for it to grow. So it's all about, again, balance, and then providing that. So also with nurturing, you got to remember that, like I said before, it's not coddling. It's not babying somebody, but it is giving them, exactly what they need in order to produce, in order to grow. And sometimes that does include hard truths as well. But there's always ways that you can, say things and do things that's not going to tear a person down, but it's going to keep building them up. And that's important to know because you don't want to ever tear someone down. You want to keep them growing. You want to keep them inspired,
I'm glad you said that. It also includes hard truth, but it does not mean tearing someone down.
That's right.
Now, a lot of times in the military, and I bring up the military a lot because that has been most of my adult life, but a lot of times in the military, a lot of our leaders, they would tear us down, but not know how to bring us back up. And that's really the only problem I have with military leadership is that they'll tell you the truth.
Mm-hmm.
They'll tell you a harsh truth, but then they'll leave it at that.
Yeah.
So as it relates to being a much better leader and being a person of influence, nurturing someone is not about babying them. You don't have to necessarily hold their hand, but just as you stated, you can give them a hard truth in a way that it is receptive,
Yeah.
so someone can hear the criticism and they can respond appropriately and make their appropriate changes so that they can become that much better.
That's right.
You know, and as we went through, a couple of episodes ago, we're talking about communication. So I think being a good nurturer and being a person of influence has a lot to do with communication and how you communicate your actual message so someone can receive it well.
That's right.
You know, faith in people is the F in influence. Faith in people really just means having all the faith in the world that the person that you're leading or the person that looks up to you, you have faith that they're going to do it. And what is faith, Marianne?
Well, scripturally, it's the evidence of things hoped for, or no, what is it?
The evidence of things
So-
hoped for that we cannot see.
That's correct. That's the end.
Right?
Yes.
And that's all that faith
No, the
is
substance of
believing.
things hoped for and the evidence of things not seen.
There
That's
you
what
go.
it was.
So it's all about believing in what you cannot see or what you cannot feel.
Right.
And that's faith.
Where you may not
Right.
have like a tangible result, but you can see all the potential in the world. It's like, I have faith that this person can do this because I can see beyond where they are now, but I see their potential of what they can be.
Well, how do we do that as it come to people? Because people are flawed and people make a lot of mistakes.
People are flawed and they do make mistakes, but does that mean that, at their core, they're a horrible person?
No.
No.
It doesn't mean that. But if I was
But-
going to have faith in someone, shouldn't I have seen some type of result first?
Sometimes. I think it depends on the situation because, like, you can have faith in a person. Like, for me, I just kind of see the good in everybody. Initially, everybody has a clean slate with me starting out until they prove otherwise.
Right.
And then in that proving, what's their intention? Was the intention malicious or was it just a mistake? Was it ignorance? Was it something they didn't know? Those kind of things can be fixed.
Right.
Other things, unless there is a change of heart or, some sort of reconciliation or whatever when they do wrong, that cannot be changed if the intention is always to do wrong. So I would say, keeping that faith in people and then seeing the good in them and then seeing their potential should never run out, unless it is just something like absolutely egregious, like you're trying to kill me or put me in jail or something like that. Like we're done after that, just so we know. But
I believe that faith in people simply means knowing that people are actually capable and they can actually do the work. Just have faith in the person that you decide to bring onto your team.
yeah,
Because ultimately,
So-
you are, or you attract what you are.
absolutely. So when you say faith in people that you bring on your team, just unconditional is like, okay, they're here, they're showing up, I'm going to have faith that they're going to perform, do well.
Not necessarily. I'm not referring to that. So one thing that John Maxwell have said, and I have to agree with him, is that I attract who I am, not who I want.
Right.
So when I mention faith in people, if I am attracting who I am, and I've taken a look in the mirror, as I mentioned earlier, and I like the person I am as a leader, I like my characteristics, and I'm attracting those type of people to work with me. As soon as they walk in the door, I have faith that they're going to be a rock star
Because you see yourself as a rock
because I see
star.
myself as a rock star.
Good deal.
But in order to get to that point, we're going to go back to the beginning. You need to first look in the mirror
Yes.
and take a real good evaluation of yourself before you can attract the right type of talent for your team or for your business, even for your personal life, for personal
I was going to
relationships.
say, even in your own
You know,
life.
it
Absolutely.
applies everywhere. Being a person of influence is not just about being an amazing business owner. It's not just about being an amazing leader, but also about being a good brother, sister, husband, wife,
A good
friend,
person.
whatever. Just a good person in general.
Yeah.
Just taking a good look at yourself, understanding where you're at, and understanding what it is you need to change.
Agreed.
Why don't you talk about the L, Marianne?
Listens.
What are we listening to? What does that mean?
It is important to listen and not listen to respond, but listen to understand. I feel like a lot of times miscommunication happens because people are not effective listeners and they always have their defenses up,
Agreed.
as opposed to just lowering your defense, hearing out the other person, and then understand where they're coming from.
Right.
So,
As it relates to listening, one thing, I'm going to say this about technology. Technology is great. It allows
It
us
is.
to do messages like this and read a worldwide audience. We can offer world-class leadership and influence worldwide change, right? Via
Totally.
technology.
Yes.
However, technology has allowed us to become poor listeners because of text. Because a lot of things through text are misinterpreted based on what you think and what you perceive.
Correct.
So as we want to become a person of influence, if you're texting somebody something and you really don't know what they're saying, I think it's best to have a conversation over the phone
It's absolutely best to have a conversation.
versus via text.
And also, you got to know what methods you need to use to communicate at the
Right.
time you're communicating. So don't send a text when you should call. Like, don't send,
Yeah,
you know what
that's
I mean?
important.
Especially if you're not a very clear writer.
Right.
Because some people can write and they write and you understand exactly what they're trying to say, you
Right.
know, over them verbally communicating. But no, again, it all goes back to knowing yourself, knowing who you are, how well you communicate, what avenues you communicate in the best, and then going from there. But then always bringing it back to not always being on the defensive.
Right.
It's like, I'm going to make my point, and then in a conversation, you've got to hear out the other person
Mhm.
and then hear their point. Listen and be open.
Right.
So,
Then the U in influence stands for understands.
oh, see how I touched on that?
You kind of touch into the
I
next
did.
topic. Understanding is all about hearing someone, empathizing with them, understanding that they may not be right, they may not be wrong, but you understand that they may have a problem or that they may need someone to talk to,
Yes.
and being very patient. Understanding has a lot to do with patience, you know, and not jumping off a cliff if things don't necessarily go your way or if you didn't hear the right response to a statement or to a question that you wanted.
Right, right.
While I think understanding is very simple to understand, it can become very complex to
It
actually perform.
can, yeah. Why do you think that is?
Well, because we're people and we want instant gratification, number one. And then number two, we believe that we're the best and we'd rather do it ourselves so we can get it right.
So it's ego.
Yeah, so it's ego. And anyone else that does it, it's probably going to be wrong. Right?
Okay.
So if I'm fixing a bike and I ask you to help me and I'm looking at you and say, hey, Marianne, give me a 5/16 quarter wrench. And you give me a 3/4. It's up to me to understand that you don't really know your way around a toolbox. I'm not saying you don't.
About to say, because I do.
I'm not saying you don't. I'm just saying maybe. But it's up to me to understand that maybe you don't. And to pause, be patient, stop what I'm doing, go to the toolbox to show you the different tools and why I need a 5/16 versus a 3/4. You know, to let you know that there's different sizes of wrenches in the toolbox. You know, so that's where understanding comes into play, is being more patient and understand. Everyone doesn't know what you're doing.
Right.
Everyone
Yes.
does not have the capacity of what you have, and everyone does not have the knowledge of what you have. So as it relates to being a leader, you have to understand that not everyone is on your level educationally, and everyone does not have the same experience that you have.
Right.
So you may not get the intended result of the statement or question that was asked. So you have to level with them.
Yes.
And that's what understanding is all about.
Yes. And not think the worst of them. It's like, nah,
Right.
you know?
That's a huge problem we have as leaders anyway, is judgment. I think if there was a J in influence, that definitely should be up there.
It should be.
Well, that's another topic for another day, is judgment.
Another day.
But the E in influence is enlarge.
Yes.
Marianne, what does it really mean to enlarge?
Enlarge. So you want to expand. So I see enlarging in a variety of ways when it comes to leadership. So you want to expand yourself, expand your own, mental capacity to be able to influence more people. You've got to expand your circle. You've got to expand your knowledge base. Like, you don't have to know how to do everything tactically, but you should know a little bit of something about a lot of different things, in my opinion.
I agree.
Yeah. So, so just always be, what do they call it? A lifelong learner.
Right.
It's like always, aspire to know more, be a part of more, circles and things like that, getting to know people. So enlarging also means enlarging your circle, the people around you. What is the saying to where it's like you are who's around you or something like that? I can't remember what the saying is, but it's a saying like that.
I think you're
It's
referring
not.
to something along the lines of birds of a feather flock together.
Yeah, that's something like that.
Something like that.
Yes.
Because based on your environment, they said, if you want to show me your network, your net worth, show me your network.
Yes,
you know what I mean?
Yes,
so
that's
you
the
are
word.
going to
That
be the
was
people
the
that
one.
surround you. So as you want to help other people enlarge, you need to first enlarge yourself.
Enlarge yourself.
And find out how you can give value back to someone else. Ronald Reagan said it best, and he said the greatest leader is not necessarily the one who does the greatest things. He is the one that gets the people to do the greatest things.
Mm-hmm.
So as we continue to
true.
enlarge ourselves, we want to constantly give back and enlarge others
That's right.
by offering that growth that I received and show them how to receive that same growth.
If they're willing as well, But yeah, I totally agree.
What about the end and influence? Navigate.
Navigate.
What are we navigating? Where are we going?
Well, exactly. So as a leader, you got to know where you're going.
Right.
How are you going to lead people? Y'all going to be wandering around in the wilderness, feeling things out? No, you should know exactly where you're going. What's the plan? What's the game? How are we going to do this? Who's got what in terms of tasks and things like that, and be able to lead with confidence, and then as well as have vision, direction, and be able to show people the way.
Right. I don't think either one of these principles are more important than the other, but I think navigation is probably one of the most important.
I agree.
Because
there's
you have
a lot of good ones on here, but navigate for sure, because you got to have direction.
Right. You have to have direction. And not only are you worried about your own direction, you have to worry about the directions of others.
Mm-hmm.
Now, and even directing yourself can be quite challenging as well.
It can.
You know, it can be very challenging if you don't know what you want, if you don't know what your values are, what your principles are, what your morals are. If you have no direction in life, how can you ever become a leader or an influential person in the first place?
Right. How can you be successful? Period.
Right, without direction.
Yeah.
Now, one of the 5 principles at the end that we're going to talk about, and this time I'm going to give you guys a sneak peek. The number 4 way to add value is to find a gap in someone else's journey and fill that gap. That's number 4, but we're going to talk about that in a little bit. Now, I brought that up early because as it relates to navigation, you have to really know someone's journey. And as someone begin to trust you and tell you their journey, it's important to find a gap, Like if you told me, Marianne, hey, I want to be an architect.
Mm-hmm.
And I was your mentor, your leader. Number one, I've never been an architect before,
Mm-hmm.
so I have no idea how to become an architect.
Mm-hmm.
But you trust me to lead you in the right direction to become an architect. So what is my responsibility as a leader? As a leader, I'm responsible for going to do some research, educating myself on the field. I don't have to become an architect to show you how to become an architect.
Right.
Okay. However, I know how to get into a profession,
Mm-hmm.
which an architect is a profession.
Correct.
Right. So, but it's my job to maybe go online and do some research of my own
Mm-hmm.
to understand what architects really do, found out your why for being an architect,
Mm-hmm.
And try to match your why with your drive and fill in the gap in your journey.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe you didn't know that college applications was due on July 30th because school starts, in August.
Right.
Maybe you didn't know that you need a GMAT score of, X, and you need to take the GMAT.
Mm-hmm.
It's up to me as a leader to tell you those things, like fill in those gaps.
Right.
That's why I think navigation is the most important.
Absolutely. And also alongside with that, to where you want to use your circle,
Right.
to where it's like, well, I'm not an architect, but I know one.
But I know one. I love it.
Yeah.
I
and
know
then
one.
You can, send your sheep.
I actually do know an architect.
Oh, really? Yeah.
I wanted to be one coming out of high school. I wanted to be an architect. So
No, get out, me.
I started joining different groups, for architects within the nation, just so I can find the best that was in the business and try to mimic theirs that career path.
Mm-hmm.
Fortunately, I ended up here, to serve everybody else in a different capacity.
You see how that all worked out anyway?
It did. Let's talk about the C in influence, connect.
Connect. Ooh, that's a good one.
That is a good one.
Yeah.
What are we connecting and how are we connecting?
Well, you got to connect a lot of things. Several dots of people. Connect with yourself. Connect with your teams. Connect with the people you lead. Connect with your community.
Mm-hmm.
It's a lot of ways to connect. And all of that is like your network right? And then that's your sphere of influence, is what
Okay.
it is.
I'm going to drop this home right now.
Okay.
When it comes to connections, I think it's very important that you connect with your message.
Oh,
You forgot about that
good
one,
one.
didn't you?
Yeah.
And we spoke
Well, I
about
did say
that. We
yourself,
spoke
though.
about that in one of our previous episodes when we were talking about communication. It's very important to connect with your message, because if you
What
don't
you're
connect with your
saying,
message,
yeah.
if you do not connect what you're saying, and that goes back to having integrity and looking at yourself, whatever your message is as a leader, you have to connect with it. And you have to hold true to it too.
You do.
You have to
Because
hold true to
people
it too.
remember. They don't forget.
Yeah. People may forget what you say, but they never forget how you made them feel.
That's correct.
So if you connect with your message and you're delivering your powerful keynote, or if you're talking to your mentee or subordinate about a life-altering decision about their job, career, or something personal, and you're not connected with that message, they're gonna sift right through it.
That's right.
People do detect BS relatively quickly.
Absolutely.
Relatively
Yeah.
quickly.
And if there's no connection to it, like you said, it's not real. People are not going to connect to it because you don't connect to it.
Right.
And then it also comes from a place, well, it's inauthentic. It comes from a place of to where people may perceive you to be a liar. And
Right.
nobody wants that, right?
Right.
So,
And that's the number one thing for me as a leader that I got to constantly be aware of is I have to constantly look at myself every single day and ask myself those questions. Do I really like the person that I am? And if there's something I don't like, I start there
yes.
You know.
And change it.
and change it. The E in influence is empower.
Empowers.
Empower. Wow. That's a big one, because as it relates to the people that are following you, that has a lot to do with you connecting to your message. That has a lot to do with you help enlarging someone's life. It has a lot to do with having faith in people as well. So the word empower, as a leader, you need to look at it from the point of view of saying, that guy's going to be great. What is he missing?
Right.
I know there's greatness in that guy or girl. There's greatness.
Yes.
What are they missing? What can I do to add value to that individual so that they can become that much better?
I have a story, just a short one.
Please do share.
So, in my own leadership journey and starting out a few years ago under an awesome, awesome lady, chief of marketing now, and she, was my mentor as well as my boss. And I, told her and expressed her as far as how I wanted to learn to speak up more and things like that. But I was always afraid. And I was like, well, I'm not in leadership, so I can't tell these people who are technically over me, what's what or whatever. I always come back and, ask her for her decision. And then one day she was like, you make the decision. You decide. You make the decision. I am empowering you to make decisions. You know all the ins and outs. You know how to make the right decisions. You know the steps it takes, and you don't make decisions lightly. Like anytime you come here and you give me your ideas or suggestions, they're usually on point. So now I'm empowering you to make the decision. And with that, I was like, okay. And off to the races I went, and no one could stop me from making decisions after that. So,
Right.
but it is almost like passing on a mantle, to the next person, because sometimes all they need is just permission to be, especially if they were cultivated or raised in environments to where they're told to be order takers and not and follow what somebody has said, as opposed to thinking for themselves,
Right.
or being able to make the decision. Sometimes, when you are dealing with people, they are coming from places to where they were silenced. And then so sometimes empowering will help them break out of those old mindsets that were put on them
Right.
and allow them to be free, be who they are, be more confident. And so empowerment is very, very important. And you have to recognize that in some people. It's like, why is that person, stepping back when I know they got it? Sometimes they just need that little push.
Marianne, I think one thing is important to note is that we have to remember that leadership is not a position.
Yeah. It's
So just because you didn't have the title that said you were a leader didn't mean that you were not a leader.
not correct.
And all it took was your manager at the time.
So, yeah, my boss.
She was your boss at the time. It only took her 5 seconds to say, you make the decision. You do it. She empowered you to be a leader. And as leaders, we have to know that everyone that follow us wants to be a leader. And it's up to us to empower them to become leaders,
Right.
right? Now, as a leader yourself, you want to take a look and see how well you are as a leader before you start making other leaders, right?
Right.
Here's a good test to see how great you are as a leader. Everyone that you know, we know five to 10 people. Everyone knows 5 to 10 people. Gather your 5 to 10 people together, gather your circle together, and I want you to relay a message. Say a message, and then see how many people you actually move. And that'll test to see how great you are as a leader, like a natural leader.
Interesting. You're right.
That's a great way to test, because Bill Braitley said this. He said, leadership is unlocking people's potential to become better. And if you deliver a message that's going to add value to someone, that's going to help them to become better, you know that you're already a leader. If someone empowers you to do something and you do that thing and you help someone else, you know that you're now a leader.
Yeah.
But leadership is all about getting better and developing more leaders.
Yes.
And if we continue to get better in ourselves and develop more leaders, and those leaders develop leaders, then we have achieved worldwide change.
Absolutely.
And this world will be
It's
a
gonna
much
keep
better
going.
place. It's going to keep going.
It will.
If we all just focus a little bit more on leadership and adding value to others and serving others, we'll be that much more better
Absolutely.
as a society.
And guess what you did? Hit on the last one.
Which
the
one?
R in influence.
Reproduce.
Reproduce.
I love it.
Influencer. Reproducing. Yes.
I went right into it. So you guys see how this all rolls together. If you look at the word influence, you know, going back from integrity, nurture, faith in people, listens, understand, enlarge, navigates, connects, empowers, and reproduce. All of those things make up an amazing leader.
It does.
It makes up a person of influence. And if
It
you want to
does.
influence, start with the word influence,
Influencer.
influencer. Break down the acronym and start with those individual words and work on that,
Yes.
you know? But back to reproduce. How do we make better leaders?
Well, by using all of the words in the acronym for influencer. Those are great keys and takeaways. But again, it's starting with you. You know, your motivation, your intention. If it's about other people, then I do feel like also you attract what you are, but you also attract the people that get it and that need it at the time to where, you know, where they need it.
Right.
What is it? When the student is ready, the master will appear.
Correct.
So if you consider yourself the master, your students will come and find you.
Correct.
And they'll be ready, and you have to be ready for them.
I totally agree. Now, we want to help you become an influencer. And people that influence have value. So John Maxwell gave us 5 ways to add value, okay? But I'm going to say, here's my 5 ways to add value.
All right. Let's hear
I've
it.
taken some time to do some research. I've spoken to a lot of people within my own organization, and there are 5 things that I discovered to help you add value to people. Number 1, the first thing is you have to truly value what you value.
Truly value what you value.
And make your values non-negotiable. Okay? So as we talk about integrity in the beginning, if being a person of integrity is one of your values, make it a non-negotiable.
Right.
If being on time is one of your values, make it a non-negotiable. By constantly doing these things consistently, you would then add value to someone. If you're constantly asking your staff to be on time, show up to training, show up to meetings, for yourself, you have to make those things non-negotiable for you. Because number 1, that's leading by example.
That's right.
And once you find something you value, make it a non-negotiable.
Yes.
And I found that to be a common thing when talking to a population of people. And I'm asking, how can I add more value?
Yes.
You know?
So my non-negotiable is I'm never going to lie to you.
Good.
That's what I always say. Don't ask me if you don't want to know, because I will never lie to you.
Not even
I
a
will-
small lie.
Not even a little bit.
Not even a little bit.
Not even a little bit. No.
Okay.
I will say everything in love, but I will never lie to you.
Good.
So what's your non-negotiable?
One of my non-negotiables as of now in this season is always providing more clarity, because I never want to make a decision and not have enough information. Prior to this year, I've made decisions based on the information that I had. But now one of my non-negotiables is to not deciding too quickly.
Yeah.
I always go forward and get more information before I make a decision.
Nice.
That's one of my non-negotiables, is always finding out more.
Good.
Number 2, 5 ways to add value to more people. Value people as people, not objects or objectives.
Correct.
With the with the way technology is going and the world going into AI, a lot of people are saying that jobs are going to be replaced by technology. Robots are going to be able to do X amount of jobs. I don't really believe that,
I don't really see it right now.
because number one, people love people.
They do.
We love talking to
Everybody
people.
loves that touchy-feely, and
Right.
especially after the pandemic and everything shut down.
Correct.
People were, just when the malls and stuff opened up, things opened
It
up,
was happy.
people were just going like,
Yeah.
I just wanted to come out and see a person.
So people are never going to leave this world, and technology is never
They're
going to
not.
completely replace us.
It's not.
So like the movie I, Robot, it was based in the year, I think 2035, where there were a lot of robots. I mean, that was cool. Can it happen? Sure, it's possible.
Yeah, anything's possible.
You know what I mean? Will it happen? I don't know. I don't see a robot delivering my mail to my house. There was a FedEx guy on the movie. A FedEx robot delivered the mail.
Oh,
I don't see
wow.
that happening, because I like talking to the Amazon guy.
Yeah,
He's very kind.
they are.
So we want to value people as people and not objects or objectives.
Right.
People have feelings.
Yes. They
We
have
have
lives.
to acknowledge that. They have
Yeah.
lives.
Yes.
So you can't expect to work them to death.
Correct.
Okay? Give them tasks, let them do their tasks, send them home.
That's right.
Okay? Let them enjoy their life, because there's work-life balance.
Absolutely.
People have ambitions. They have goals. So you want to help people achieve their goals.
Correct.
Okay? And then once you start doing those things, you're already well on your way to adding value to people.
Absolutely.
Especially if you're helping someone achieve their goal.
Because people do not forget it. Again.
Correct.
No.
Number 3, and this is one of my favorite ones: grow your knowledge and pass it on every single day. I think
That's good.
every single day you should be learning. Every single day you should learn something. One of my goals is to learn one thing a day,
One
per day.
thing new. Yes.
At least one thing new per day.
Yeah.
And then pass it on to somebody else. That's the key.
Yeah, I started actually keeping a journal now of one thing that I've learned,
Mm-hmm.
from my day, and I write it down before I go to bed. And it's like, okay, and then I meditate on that and think, now how can I apply this
Right.
to my days? that
So
are
I'm
coming?
going to challenge you, right?
Oh goodness.
What did
the
you learn
challenge?
last night before you go to bed? What did you write down?
Oh my gosh.
I was going to ask you. Come on. Give it to me.
So last night I learned, as far as like how to, wanting to make sure that I am keeping my time blocks and honoring myself. So that's a big thing for me, to where it's like I got to make sure that I'm always honoring myself. And by doing that is keeping promises to myself. So if I say I'm going to do something at a certain time,
Gotcha.
I need to do it, and then not talk myself out of it.
I love it.
So, and me talking myself out of it is me breaking a promise to myself. It's like, remember, Marianne, you said you were going to do this. So make sure that I'm always keeping, my time, my schedule, because my time is important. I get so angry when, other people don't value my time. But then I had to look back, and it's like, well, Marianne, do you value your own time?
Right.
When you say you're going to do something at 2:30, do you get up and do it at 4:30? Yes. Should you do that? No, absolutely.
You said
not.
yes.
Yeah, totally do. Keeping my own time. So me trying to make sure that I'm always, keeping my promises to myself and valuing. And then last night, it just happened to be valuing my time.
Gotcha. Okay. I spoke about number 4 earlier. I gave the spoiler. So number 4 was find a gap in someone's journey and fill that gap. That has a lot to do with understanding where someone is actually going, and then find a way to add value to them and fill that gap.
Yes.
I gave the example earlier how one of your followers or one of your mentees wanted to be an architect. But me as a leader, I don't know anything about being an architect. But I realized this mentee don't know anything about being an architect either.
Right.
So I think it's important to help someone fill the gaps in their life so that they can become that much better.
Yes. And how to come alongside them. It's like, even if I don't know, because I am committed to you, I'm committed to your journey, and we connect in that way, I want to make sure that you are successful. So I'm going to, use what I have, use
Right.
my resources to be able to help you.
Marianne, you deal with this a lot at your job. You know, you are the director of marketing and branding for Atlas Realty Group.
Yes.
So I know a lot of times people come to you and ask them about their marketing plan, their own personal brand. Can you tell me a time where you had to find a gap in someone's marketing and help them fill that void?
Yes, to be honest, that actually kind of happened a little bit today. So I was working with one of the agents and they were talking about their ideas and what did they wanted to do. And I'm like, okay, that's great. So let's talk about the whole system. You
Gotcha.
know, so you get the most bang for your buck, and so it's most effective whenever you're going out door knocking, whenever you're going out meeting people and networking and things like that. You want to make sure your system is right on the back end, so when you're collecting leads, you're getting all of the information that you want, so you can, you know, contact them. It's all going into your CRM, and then you can create, you know, campaigns and things like that. You can set up automations because, again, people are busy, and so
Right.
they're not going to remember 50 people and email each person. Like, there's technology that can assist with that. So it was like, oh, I didn't know I could do that.
Right.
Absolutely, you can do that. So that was me, you know, filling a gap in his knowledge in terms of, like, you know, it doesn't have to be as difficult or as overwhelming as you think it is. You can go full on. As long as you got your system set up right on the back end, you'll be able to, you know, go out, do door knocking, collect as many leads and as many people that turn around and register for your, you know, your site, your app or whatever. It'll be able to collect on the back end using the technology that we have. And then it just makes your job so much easier
Right.
and also more effective, you know, as an agent. So they can focus on agent things while their marketing stuff is kind of running for them in the background. So I love stuff like that. I love when a plan comes together.
He's never going to forget that.
Yeah.
He's never going to forget that. If he forget anything you said, he's going to remember how you made him feel, which I know he was probably overwhelmed, and now he felt a sense of relief. So he's going to come back to you time and time and again.
I hope so. Yeah.
And that just demonstrates, you know, the impact you have as a leader. You know, you found a way, you found a gap in his journey, and you filled that gap with your knowledge, right?
Right. That's the goal. Is to share it, you know?
And this is why I love this. This is why I love leadership. And this is why I love just talking about how to become more influential, because how you made that guy feel, your mentee, when you helped him with his marketing plan, everybody should feel that way every single day. But it takes more people to be better leaders in order to make that happen.
Yes.
I think leadership should be very much intentional,
It should be.
to where we're consciously thinking about leadership and how we can become better leaders at all seconds of the day while we are inside our businesses and our teams.
Right.
You know,
I'm not even going to lie. I just thought about how I could do better, you know, just now, because I actually waited for him to, you know, come to me, as I do with most. It's like, you know, if you need help, I'm always available. But it's like, well, why don't I step out and say, hey, I don't know if you guys know this,
Right.
because I helped him. He didn't know. So maybe more people don't know.
I actually like that idea.
Yeah.
When we can become intentional leaders, we're now stepping out of our offices and our box, and we're going to our team members and our teammates, or, you know, to our significant other, and we're asking, what is it that I can help you with today?
Yes.
How can I serve you?
Yes. Presenting yourself, you
Right.
know, being out there as opposed to waiting on people to come to you.
Don't be an in the closet leader. Yeah. No one like that. If you have all these great skills and qualities, but you don't talk to anyone, then what
Yes.
good does it do for the rest of the
It's no good.
How does it help the rest of the world?
Right.
It doesn't.
Right.
But once again,
And then also, you know, we got to remember in terms of, like, you know, not getting bogged down with busy.
right?
It's like, oh, I'm busy. I'll do it later. I'm busy. Time, you know, make the time, make it intentional,
Right.
you know, get out there. Don't be in the closet.
And the fifth way to add value to people, and this one is going to blow your mind, but it's so simple, right? Give more than what you have. If we're constantly being givers and you give more than what you have, other people are constantly receiving, and they're receiving more than what they currently have.
Yes. And the beautiful thing about that is you will never run out of your supply,
Correct.
which is wild, but it's true. You will never run out. The more you give, the more people will be able to receive, the more people will be empowered. And then
Correct.
from that, you'll be empowered. You'll want to continue to give. It'll just keep
Right.
flowing. And it's amazing.
Right. You know, there are people out there that ask the question, how do I grow my team? How do I grow my business? How do I help my teammate or my team member become better?
Right.
I think the answer is all in how much you give.
I agree.
You know,
I totally agree with that.
if you want to grow your team, like literally go out and start giving. People will automatically come to you.
Yes.
If you want to grow yourselves, go out and start giving. I'm not talking about giving away your product for free. Maybe give 10 samples to somebody and then give your time and show them how to use it. You may get a referral that purchase it,
You might.
you know?
Yeah.
But you have to give something. You have to give your time. You have to give your energy. You have to give your knowledge. Always look for a different way to give.
You have to give yourself.
Yep, give yourself. You know, constantly give yourself and constantly give something in order to increase your ability to add value to people and to help you become a person of influence.
Absolutely. That's good. Well, as we wrap up talking about how to become more influential, if you'd like to know more about our offerings, you'll find us on Facebook and Instagram at Atlas Leadership Academy. Please like, comment, share, and subscribe. You can also click the notification bell for updates. Join us next week as we continue to dive more into leadership topics and on how to become a better leader. If you'd like to have the show notes, please go to our bio.